Building a brand new home in Omaha sounds like the dream. You have perfect brand new finishes, nobody else's wear and tear, and you can make the choices of what your house looks like. But I can tell you from experience, there are a lot of things that people regret about building new construction. Today, I'm going to walk you through the 10 biggest regrets I hear from clients over and over so you can walk into the situation of building new construction with your eyes wide open. My name is Morgan Putnam, and I am a local realtor. Let's get into it. Thank you so much for stopping by the Omaha Insider YouTube channel. Please take a moment to subscribe so you're always the first to know what's going on in Omaha. Regret number one from folks who are building new construction homes and the reality sets in once you either sign that contract with the builder or once you move in. The first thing I hear is that people are shocked that new homes are not necessarily maintenance free. There is still routine maintenance you absolutely have to do on every home, whether it's new construction or an older home. And people don't really realize that. They think that they're just going to be able to live in the house with really no issues whatsoever. So not only is there routine maintenance, but there's also aspects of a home that kind of settle with time. So like for instance, you're going to really use that plumbing for the first time. Nobody has lived in that house. And so all of a sudden you'll learn things pretty quickly of like, how long does your water actually stay hot if you and your bunch of kids are showering in the house? What's the strain on the system? As well as just like normal foundation settling cracks. And a big thing in Nebraska is concrete cracks so easily in Nebraska because of our freeze thaw cycle. And so people are pretty surprised that all of a sudden they might have a lot of settling in a sidewalk or in a driveway. And along with that, people are sometimes surprised by the builder's warranty. So there is over 500 builders in the Omaha Metro. So obviously I'm not going to go into every detail of what the warranty is like with each of those builders, because however, it's great that builders offer a warranty, but you need to realize that a warranty does not necessarily guarantee that they're going to fix everything that you see as a problem with your house. Usually when you enter into a contract with the builder, there will be some description of what the warranty looks like, but there's usually a lot of excitement in building a house, and maybe the emphasis isn't necessarily on there to figure out exactly what the warranty looks like. So there might be some surprises that you have to take care of if something breaks in your house in that first year. So I do hear over and over, maybe a little bit of a disappointment and a little bit of shock of a new house does need routine maintenance, and there's also things that are going to go wrong because nobody's ever lived there. And so the house hasn't necessarily been put to the test by having people live in the house full time. The second thing that I hear from a lot of folks who build new construction is that they are a little bit surprised by the reality of living in a neighborhood that is still actively being developed. So that means that they're living in a neighborhood that has a lot of construction equipment around all the time. And yes, this is a temporary problem, but it is pretty inconvenient. I'll hear things like, oh, I regularly get a flat tire because you're just driving over nails because there's just a lot of dumpsters and a lot of construction debris that might float around in these neighborhoods. There's oftentimes not foliage over dirt, and so when it rains a lot, you'll have a bunch of dirt ending up in the street. There's just some pros and cons of living in a neighborhood that is an active construction site. And this isn't even touching on the fact that oftentimes construction workers start pretty early, and so there's going to be construction noise pretty early starting in a lot of these new construction neighborhoods. The third complaint that I hear from a lot of different folks who are building new construction is that the communication from the builder isn't necessarily what they expected. And so this is something that you hope to kind of feel out when you're considering different builders, is to kind of figure out what your communication with them is going to be like. And this is also just a buyer preference. Some people want to be completely checked out of the home build process because they're like, I'm paying you to do it. I don't want to be involved. I'll make my selections and that's it. And then other folks who are building want to be really involved. And so different builders have different communication styles. Sometimes they only will communicate through their realtor. And other times they're happy to jump on a phone call with you whenever you possibly want. And so this is something that you'll kind of flesh out when you're talking with different builders, but it's good to kind of set an expectation of what you're looking for when you're interviewing builders, so you know that you'll get what you're looking for in as far as communication from your builder. The fourth complaint that I hear regularly is that home buyers didn't necessarily realize the tax implications of buying a new construction home. Oftentimes the lot is the only thing that's assessed with the city. So the first year of taxes is incredibly low because it's only the lot. It might be like $800, maybe $1,000 for an entire year of taxes, where in Nebraska, there's obviously no chance that that's going to last. And so then the second year, the city might assess your house at about like half of what it's actually worth. And so your taxes will go up a little bit more the next year, but then the second year is usually when it really sets in of it might be fully assessed right then within the second year. And so your tax bill went from about $1,000 a year to 10, 12, $16,000 a year. If you're working with a good lender, they'll communicate all this with you, and your realtor should also be communicating this with you, that you need to be prepared for what your taxes are going to be in the next couple of years, and can you really handle that payment? I've worked with some sellers who are having to sell their house because they didn't really realize how much that's going to change their monthly payment. It can easily change your monthly payment $1,000 a month. And so you just need to know going into it that in reality, your monthly payment is going to be a lot higher than what it is at the closing table on that exciting day of your moving into your new construction home. Another complaint that I hear regularly is that people don't necessarily understand the allowance that you get from a builder. So it depends on if you're building semi-custom or fully custom, what allowance you get for each category, and each builder is different. Usually a builder is going to give you some sort of allowance. Maybe it's like $3,000 for your appliance allowance. So that means all of your appliances, your kitchen appliances, for $3,000. And if you go over that, then all of a sudden you're exceeding your allowance. So there's going to have to be a change order at the end of the purchase. So all of a sudden your purchase price of your house is going to go up. The same thing goes for carpet, any sort of flooring, fixtures, faucet, tile. So anything that goes over the set allowance is going to be a change order at the end. And all of a sudden your house is going to be more expensive. And so sometimes people are like, these are not finishes that I want at all within this allowance. And so then it can change wildly how much your house ends up costing if you have expensive taste and you want the highest end finishes. The sixth complaint that I hear over and over from people who are buying a new construction home is that the timeline for closing is maybe a little different than what you discussed when you signed the contract with the builder. So all of a sudden, when you thought you were going to be able to close in April, it might be a June closing, a July closing. Again, this is a communication style from the builder. You might not necessarily know about it until really at the last minute. And so this is frustrating for a lot of different buyers who are especially needing to sell their home, because they need to know when to list their home. And so it's important to have whatever sort of communication you're wanting communicated with the builder upfront before you sign that contract, so you know that you can reach out to that builder and they will get back to you to let you know when you can close on your home and then when you need to list your existing home in order to buy your new home. The seventh complaint that I hear over and over from folks who are buying new construction is that there are hidden costs. And it's not necessarily that they're hidden, they're just not necessarily thought through costs after you close on your home. So most builders do not include a fridge. That is not necessarily always the case, but that is pretty common. And so you need to know that you're going to be needing to buy a fridge, a washer and dryer. And then there are things like blinds or curtains that a lot of people don't necessarily think through, that when you're needing to put curtains or blinds on an entire house worth of windows, it can be really expensive, let alone if you're wanting to put in a fence or any sort of landscaping that's usually not included in the purchase price of the house. And so you need to be aware that there are a lot of expenses post-closing that, just so you know, and that you allot some money for if those are things that you need or want. And some of these things can be done down the road, but a lot of times, like things like blinds or fridge, you kind of need right away in order to live in the house. The eighth complaint that I hear for folks who are building new construction is that they don't necessarily know exactly what's in their builder contract. So oftentimes builders have their own separate contracts from the standard Nebraska purchase agreement. And sometimes they'll use the standard Nebraska purchase agreement and then have a bunch of different addendums to add onto the purchase agreement. And some will not use the purchase agreement at all and will just provide you with the contract that their lawyers drew up and is obviously in their favor. And oftentimes these aren't really negotiable. It's just kind of is what it is. And so it's important to read through that contract so you're aware of the implications for the contract, because there's oftentimes a pretty hefty cost if you are the reason why you don't close on the house. So if, for instance, you have a home sale contingency, house doesn't sell on time, and you need that in order to buy your new construction home, there's usually some sort of fee from the builder. It's like $200, $250, $300 a day that you delay closing, because that means the builder is having to hold the cost of that house that's ready to be sold. Every builder has a different contract, and so it's just important to be aware that it's good to really read through that contract when you're sitting down to sign with the builder. The ninth complaint that I hear from folks who are building new construction is that they felt like they didn't necessarily do enough research on their lot location when they pick out a lot. So in Nebraska, we have different lot options. There's usually a walkout or a flat lot, and people have totally personal preference of what you prefer, if you want a walkout or if you want a flat lot or a slightly sloped lot that maybe has some bigger windows downstairs but isn't a true walkout. So it's important to really think through what you want as far as that, but then also the location in the neighborhood. Where is it at on the hills? Is it at the top of the hill or is it at the bottom of the hill? Or maybe you're going to have more water issues at the bottom of the hill. There's just a lot of different things to think through when you're picking out a lot. Sometimes buyers feel like they didn't necessarily do enough research to really think through what they're wanting in reality with the placement of their house. The 10th regret that I hear a lot of buyers complain about is that they feel like they should have hired a realtor to represent them with the builder. There's a lot of times where you don't necessarily have to work with a realtor on the buy side for new construction. However, there tends to be a lot of benefits because usually the builder has a realtor representing them. Folks feel like they were maybe taken advantage of or didn't necessarily know their different options. Like, for instance, sometimes builders will allow inspections and sometimes builders won't. And a lot of times people don't necessarily go down the route of getting an inspection done and regret it in the end. And those are the types of things that a realtor can help you with negotiating your contract and making sure that everything is done on time and keeping you informed with what the builder is doing and making sure that they're sticking to the schedule and sticking to the agreed contract. Those are the 10 biggest regrets or mistakes or things that home buyers wish that they maybe would have known when they're building a new construction home. If you have anything else you think that should be added to this list, by all means drop it in the comments. There are plenty of ways to avoid a lot of these mistakes by being informed and by working with a realtor that you trust who is working in your best interest when working with that builder. If you have any questions about new construction, feel free to reach out. My number is 402-720-9886.